प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसुप्तां सञ्जीवयत्यखिलशक्तिधरस्वधाम्ना अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणत्वगादीन् प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यं। प्राणान्नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम्.
That we are born with the Abhava Bodha because we are not self-seated. We are missing the joy which is right there in our core being. And the delusion, because of the delusion that this can be filled by getting something from the objective world, which is never going to happen. The only solution lies in discovering the soul where the joy is a spontaneous characteristics. Now, even if you are not able to discover the soul, we know that there is a property of there are some characteristics of the soul. What is that? It never changes, it never gets affected. Unaffectedness is the property. It is not constricted by any body or anything, it is universal. It is all embracing. It is loving everybody. There is no partialism in it. There is no, it's always impersonal. So, Bhagavad Gita puts it like that, that in meditative case, in meditative sadhana, you are discovering a soul which is like that. In the discovery, you are finding the infinite soul, the transcendental soul, which is unchanging, unaffected, etc. Now, does it mean that every time you will go into the meditation to know that soul? Then throughout the life you have to be meditating? Our mind and body has not been created to remain inactive throughout. So Bhagavad Gita says that you don't have to always find out the soul in meditation. You will not need it anymore when you can understand or you can experience the soul everywhere, in everything, in the whole world. The whole world is appearing in that soul. How do you do it? The interactions have to be changed. The interactions which are now governed by your selfishness, greed, desire, partiality, and all kinds of constrictions, those have to be treated. In the interactions also, you have to establish the soul properties. That is, when you are interacting in the factory, in your house, in the society, you have to gain enough of impersonality like the soul. That is mine, me and others, those have to go. Selfishness had to be replaced by selflessness. The partial love to specific things have to be replaced by universal love, love for everybody. So what will happen in your interaction itself, when you are interacting with such an universal love, with so much of impersonality, you will find so much of joy in the interactions itself. Who will meditate? No need for meditation at all. In meditation, what are you doing? From the disturbing mind. Because why are you meditating? Because you are not happy with your mind. Is it not so? Meditation is a zero state. Why do you want to go to thoughtless meditation? Because you are not happy with your thoughts. Is there any explanation necessary? If you are happy with your thoughts, you would not have meditated. You are going to a thoughtless state because you are not happy with the thoughts. Now, if the mind constantly generates very fulfilling thoughts of universal love, impartiality, unaffectedness, etc., you will be very happy with the thoughts. Why should you want a zero state then? This is the greatness of Bhagavad Gita. That is not to look for divinity going away from the world, but to bring in divinity in the world. The world will remain the world, but create by removing your ragadvesha, you make the world divine for you. The world will remain as it is. For you, the world will become nectarine, divine. Like as Yoga Vasishtha says that if you don't want the dust to touch your feet, are you going to cover the whole earth with leather? You put on the shoes and go anywhere, the dust will not touch your feet. Purne manasi sampurnam Jagat sarvam sudhadravaihi upanat gudhapadasya nanu charmastritaiva bhuhu. When the mind becomes full, this is the fullness, there is no abhava bodha, there is no insufficiency. When the mind becomes full, for him the whole Jagat becomes nectarine, full. The Jagat remains Jagat, the world remains world, but for him it becomes flowing with nectar. Like as upanad gudhapadasya nanu charmastritaiva bhuhu. One who has put on the shoes, the dust never touches feet. For that he doesn't have to cover the whole earth with leather. This is what Yoga Vasishtha says. Yoga Vasishtha also always tries to project that how to make our life divine, not to run away from life, to attain divinity. Certain concepts I wanted to start straight away from 18th chapter, but there is no point, because there are certain points which we remember. If we remember and understand very well, then we can read any portion of Bhagavad Gita, it will become clear. So some fundamental points have to be repeated again and again in different various manner. See, in Bhagavad Gita, most probably in the 3rd chapter, 1st verse, he is saying, Jyayasi chet karmanaste mata buddhir janardana tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. And also, Krishna is saying, Lokesmin dvividha nishtha pura prokta mayanagha jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. This confusion Arjuna has expressed right from the beginning. That is, initially to relieve him of the grief, Krishna spoke about the Atma, which is called Sankhya Yoga. That means the knowledge of our real identity, knowledge of the soul. And that had the immediate effect of relieving him from grief, and he must have felt the sublimity within. So then he again and again asks, even in 5th chapter again he is asking that if this is what knowledge is, and knowledge gives us such instant effect of sublimity and purity, then why are you asking me to fight the war, which is a karma, and which is a ghora karma? We cannot even imagine the kind of work it is to fight the war. It is not like the present day war. They have to fight in person, right on the battlefield. He has to kill his own most beloved grandfather, own kith and kin, the most respected teacher from whom he had learned the archery. So it's not going to be easy at all. So he is saying, rather I will think about the Atma, about the truth, I will meditate, I will contemplate, I will read the Shastras, and I will have the knowledge which is so uplifting and benefiting. And Krishna is repeatedly saying that no, he is making him understand what he is fit for. So this idea we should have very clear, that the Upanishadic knowledge, the pursuit of the Upanishadic pursuit, it is called Kevala Jnana Nishtha. I have been telling it every year, but I again repeating. It's called Kevala Jnana Nishtha, which means exclusive pursuit of knowledge, exclusive dedication to knowledge. That means your sadhana will be only Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Shravana means you listen from the Guru, you listen to the truth, that what is the truth. Manana means after you have listened to the truth, you have to think about it, meditate on it, because your buddhi will not immediately agree to it. You will say that Guru is saying the Atma is unaffected, unchanging, but I am feeling always that I am getting affected, I am not unchanging, I am limited by my body, mind, personality. So how can the two be correlated? That Atma is one and transcendental and universal. I don't feel that. I feel I am encapsulated by the body. So where is the difference? What is the Atma then the Guru and the Shastras are speaking about? What is that? So more and more we contemplate on that, we come to know, as I have been discussing over the last few days, morning and evening, that this Atma is not in the objectude. Objectude, you understand? The whole universe, it is an object before us. Not only the universe, within our mind also, the Atma, the consciousness is revealing the thoughts, emotions. Even when there are no thoughts, no emotions, that zero state is also revealed by the Atma. So you understand, this Atma is the revealer of all. It cannot be one of the revealed. Whatever is revealed we call object. This we have to understand very well. Object means whatever is revealed before the subject. I am the, हम जान रहे हैं, हम ज्ञानी हैं, और जो कुछ भी हम देख रहे हैं, सुन रहे हैं, जान रहे हैं, वो है ज्ञाना. तो इसमें ज्ञानी और ज्ञाना हमेशा फर्क है. जो ज्ञानी है वो ज्ञान नहीं है, लेकिन आत्मा संपर्कित ज्ञान, आत्मा के विषय में जो ज्ञान है वो किसका ज्ञान है? वो ज्ञानी के विषय में ही ज्ञान है ना. हमारे जो सब्जेक्ट है, जो जानने वाले हैं, उनके विषय में वो ज्ञान है. तो उसका जब पूरी तरह से उत्पन्न होगा तो ज्ञानी और ज्ञान में कोई फर्क नहीं रहेगा. ज्ञानी और ज्ञान दोनों एक ही बन जाएंगे. That we call it Triputi Nasha. That means there is a knower, there is a knowledge, and there is a knowing process. These three are for all objective knowledge. This is the way. Even if about when we are trying to know the Atma is discussed in the book or it is talked about. That is, as far as we are initially concerned, it is different from me, because I am trying to know by listening about it, by reading about it, by thinking about it, I am trying to know. But more and more we actualize that knowledge, what is happening? That concept of I, the identity in us, is getting changed. And whatever Atma we are knowing about, I become that finally. So this is a very special knowledge. It is called Advaya Jnana, or non-dual knowledge. Non-dual knowledge. That is, in all other knowledge there will be the difference between the subject and the object. The subject means knower and the knowledge. So the knower is called the subject and the entire thing is object before him. The whole world is an object before him. Even the internal thoughts, emotions, everything. They are object because we are knowing them. Whatever is revealed is object. The revealer only is the subject. So this is the point where we generally are not able to grasp the truth. In Srimad Bhagavatam also, it is considered to be a devotional text, but it has the highest notions of jnana is discussed there. Right in the beginning he is saying, Vadanti tat tattva vidaha tattvam yad jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate. He says that Vadanti tat tattva vidaha, those who know the truth. Tattvabit means those who know the truth. They say, what do they say? Tattvam yat jnanam advayam. Tattva means the essence, the truth, the ultimate truth. The ultimate truth is the Advaya Jnana. Dvaya means dual, Advaya means non-dual. Ultimate truth is the non-dual knowledge. This non-dual knowledge is not like हमने अद्वैत philosophy पढ़ लिया and that is the non-dual. No. Non-dual is knowledge is not that हमने पढ़ लिया वो ज्ञान दूसरा है हम जान लिया, ऐसा नहीं है. हम जब अपने को जानेंगे वही उसी को खाली नॉन-डुअल नॉलेज बोला जाता है. इसलिए मुंडकोपनिषद में बताया गया है कि सारा जो कुछ है, द 4 वेदास, द 6 वेदांगास, एवरीथिंग इज अपरा विद्या, inferior knowledge. The Vedas, the Mundakopanishad is part of the Vedas. It is saying the Vedas also are inferior knowledge. Everything, whatever is there in spirituality, everything is inferior knowledge. Then what is the supreme knowledge? He says 2 kinds of vidya are there, para and apara. Then what is the supreme, the para? He says, yaya tadaksharam adhigamyate. Aksharam means undecaying, that is imperishable, unchanging. By which that unchanging, imperishable truth is actualized. Adhigamyate, not in the usual sense of known or read. it becomes actualized. That is called the apara knowledge. So this speciality of the non-dual knowledge, if you remember, it will be very good for our sadhana. Why are people not able to attain that? Because in the meditation also they are looking for something else than what they are. Am I clear? In the meditation you are thinking of the self, that Atma बोल के कुछ है, वो हम जानेंगे. That means Atma is different from you. Is it not so? And वो जो जानने की कोशिश आप कर रहे हैं आत्मा को, उसके द्वारा ही आप आत्मा को अपने से अलग बनाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. ये समझ में आ रहा? The very effort is non-selfizing. It's making the self non-self. Because you want to see the Atma. You cannot. You are the Atma. So only when you stop looking for anything else, stop looking for anything second, the Atma will reveal. This is the non-dual knowledge we have to understand. It is not in the objectitude. It cannot be the revealed. If the Atma is revealed, then it is not the Atma. The revealer is the Atma. Do you get my point? So, this non-dual knowledge is by Shravana, we will not be able to immediately understand. We have to do manana, we have to meditate with the intelligence, we have to absorb. By that what will happen? Our mind and intelligence will undergo a transformation. It will get purified, sharper, and it will start radiating the real soul dimensions. You will become non-selfish, you will become universal, you will become unaffected. These are the spiritual quotient we should know. 50 साल से साधना करते आ रहे हैं. कुछ हुआ, कैसे समझेंगे कुछ हुआ कि नहीं? अपनी ओर देखिए, पहले जिस सिचुएशन में, जिस अवस्था में बहुत गुस्सा हो जाते थे, एजिटेटेड हो जाते थे, क्या बोलेंगे हिंदी में, विचलित हो जाते थे, वो आजकल उतना विचलित नहीं होते हैं. Generally with the age we become all the more agitated, which in young days you could easily accept. As you grow old you cannot accept anything at all. कोई कुछ बोला तो एकदम पूरा गुस्सा होकर घर छोड़ के चले जाना चाहते हैं. So that is actually we are getting more affected. That means we are not advancing in spirituality. Advancement means we will have the atmic dimensions. Whatever we are reading about the soul, those dimensions, those parameters should start radiating from us. So when we are doing the manana, slowly the intelligence starts discovering the truth in its real form. Then height of manana is when the intelligence does not raise any more doubt about this Atma. It has understood and there is no further question there. But still, it has not got actualized. That is, intelligentially we have understood everything. That is the part of the manana. Now, when I have understood everything and understood the truth, then what happens? We are no more interested in anything in the world. For the timing, at that time, you are not interested. So what happens? Your mind automatically is given to the truth and truth alone. Normally, जब मनना हो चलता है, तो उस समय आप कुछ समय आत्मा के प्रति सोचते हैं और कुछ समय और चीज़ों के प्रति सोचते हैं. जैसे अभी देखें कि सब स्त्री लोग वहाँ पे खाना बना रहा है, हमने कहा रहे ये तो क्लास करने वाले नहीं हैं, अभी सब क्या बना रहे थे, ठेकुआ या कुछ बना रहे होंगे. It should be planned in a manner that you finish it not during, you don't have to work during the class time. वहाँ अभी 4-5 बैठे हुए हैं, बन रहा है सब खाना, ये ठीक नहीं है. So manana is like that. When we go to the class, I will think, and rest of the period, 23 hours, I will not think about it. But nididhyasana is not that. Nididhyasana is defined as eka tattva ghanabhyasa. Eka tattva. That means the truth is only one. It's not variety. Eka tattva ghana abhyasa. Ghana means there is no, it is continuous. There is no break in it. Abhyasa means practicing the truth in continuous manner. There is no break. As long as there is break, it is manana. Or the other example given is, it is like taila dharavat. That means when you pour water, the water gets split into droplets. So there are breaks. But if you pour oil, you will find that it is a continuous flow. So the mind starts flowing towards the truth in like the oil, it flows like that. That is called Nididhyasana. That peak and the ultimate fruition of Nididhyasana itself is the Nirvikalpa Samadhi or Jnana Samadhi. So this is the exclusive Jnana Nishtha. But as Krishna repeatedly says, and the Upanishad also says, that this practice is restricted to very few people. Why? Not because of any other thing that they are keeping it a secret, because people are not fit to practices. Because देखिए, आप जब मेडिटेशन में बैठते हैं तो मन नहीं लगता है, मन इधर उधर घूमते रहता है, तो कैसे मनना करेंगे? जब पढ़ने के लिए बोला जाता है शास्त्र, ओ स्वामी जी आप जब बोलते हैं तब तो आनंद मिलता है, लेकिन जब हम अपने पढ़ते हैं तो कुछ नहीं लगता है, कुछ नहीं मिलता है. Miru is looking very sadly, but there are so many Hindi people, so I thought I will speak a little Hindi also. Poor Malaysians, they don't know at all Hindi, ek shabd bhi nahi jate. So people are not mature for or fit for this practice. That is why in the Upanishadic age, this practice was restricted to only few people. Those who have already, they do not have any worldly attraction, repulsion, nothing. They would go to the forest and remain with the Guru in the hermitage and practice, do this sadhana. But it is not all. From time to time, there has been revolutionary introductions in our country. And from Bhagavad Gita and other granthas, we come to know that it is just like the cyclic time, it comes and goes. Whenever there has been like this, a new wave has come. Like that Bhagavad Gita presents a new wave, and Krishna himself is saying that this was there earlier. All the Rishi, Janaka and other Rajarshis, they have practiced this. But it has got obliterated from our country. Now the Rajas have all become corrupt. So I have come to reintroduce this. And what was the practice for them? He says that for them, this Shravana Manana Nididhyasana is not the way. For them is Karma Yoga. Jnana Yogena Sankhyanam, Karma Yogena Yoginam. So clearly he has placed that these are the twofold sadhana, but nobody should feel bad that, or should feel that by practice, by working and not taking to exclusive Jnana Nishtha, I will not reach the same goal. The goal is the same. That is why it is called twofold. According to the fitness of the person it is taken. So repeatedly Krishna is saying that Arjuna, you are not fit for this exclusive Jnana Nishtha. Immediately you may have the effect of listening to Jnana, you must have felt very good, very sublimated and all. But if you have to practice, you will not be able to, because Duryodhana and the war will haunt your mind. Your mind will be taken away here and there. Because you have meditated on this war for 13 years and also before. So your mind had been occupied with all these thoughts. How will it suddenly go? We have to follow a sadhana which is natural to a person. At the same time, he promises that by following my direction, even if you are involved in this ghora karma, I will make this karma an instrument for you to reach the same goal. This is the great revolutionary statement of Bhagavad Gita. That is, if you look into the first chapter, 1.44 or 45, Arjuna is saying that Ahovata mahat papam kattum vyavasita vayam yat rajya sukhalobhena hantum swajana mudyata. That means in his mind, the Mahabharata war was a great sin. It was a sinful deed. Mahapapa, mahat papam. Why? Because yat rajya sukha lobhena hantum swajana mudyata. We are going to kill our kith and kin and the most beloved grandfather on whose lap I have grown and the most respected teacher from whom I have learned the war art, the archery. I have to fight them. So is it not a great papa? And for what are we going to fight? For Rajya Sukha Lobhena. For the greed for winning the kingdom and enjoying the comfort which comes out of becoming king. enjoying the comfort of the kingdom or sukha of the kingdom. That is why we are fighting the wars. So you see that till he came to the Mahabharata war also, Arjuna's mind was selfish, constricted. He was still thinking that I am fighting the war to become a king and enjoy the kingdom, which they were deprived throughout. So naturally, his mind will not be able to suddenly take to Kevala Jnana Nishtha. His mind will go there, here and there. So Krishna says that you do the same work. I am not asking you to change your field of activity. You fight the same war. But if you follow my instructions in changing your mindset, that is for what you are fighting the war, that has to be addressed. If you are ready to change your mindset, then this war itself will take you to higher and higher dimensions and finally to the ultimate level of Brahman. This is the great promise and the revolutionary concept of Bhagavad Gita. That is, generally in Upanishadic pursuit, we consider all activities as hindrance to our sadhana. Forget about Upanishadic pursuit. Those who even pursue a meditation remaining in the world also, all of you feel that activities are hindrance to your meditational pursuit, is it not? It is because you are seeing the sadhana as a piecemeal effort. And that is why there lies the obstacle also. What are you trying to do in meditation? Tell me. In meditation, what is the goal? Is it not to attain the soul? Now, what does this soul represent? Is it not unaffectedness, universality, impartiality, impersonality, all-embracing love? These are the soul property, is it not? So you are trying in meditation to get to an identity where you will lose all your constrictions, bondages, everything, and you will feel free. That is what the samadhi is. You will lose even the idea of your body-mind limited personality. The egoistic personality also will get dissolved. You are looking for that goal. And those who are successful, they are having that experience in that. Now, in the worldly actions, you are not able to bring that goal. Because the moment you are in the world, coming back from the meditative life, meditative hours, you are active, your mind is haunted by all kinds of constrictions. You are again selfish, you are again thinking of you only, not about the society, not about others. You are partial, you are haunted by raga, dvesha. So, which are all anti-soul, reverse to the self. There lies the greatest problem for all sadhakas. You have to change your mindset, and the goal of the interactive life also will have to be the same. That is, whatever is the goal of the meditative life to attain the soul means that universality, impersonality, etc. In your interactive life also you have to put that as the goal. And all your interactions will undergo change. Not the interactions will change outwardly. Your mindset will undergo a change.